There's a 1992 romantic comedy that most people wrote off as a slick Eddie Murphy vehicle, and they completely missed what was actually happening on that set. 15 revelations are coming that will change how you see this film forever. Behind the glamour and the laughs, there were unscripted slaps, last-minute casting saves, a deleted scene so outrageous it was pulled entirely, and one jaw-dropping bonus at the end that almost nobody has ever talked about. So speed up with me because the list starts now. Number 1. Grace Jones's unscripted slap. Nobody told Eddie Murphy it was coming. In the boardroom scene where Marcus is presenting fragrance names to Strange A, Grace Jones suddenly grabbed a notepad and whacked Murphy right across the face. Completely off script with zero warning. The stunned expression you see on screen, that's not acting. That's a man genuinely processing the fact that he just got slapped by Grace Jones in front of a film crew. Director Reginald Hudlin has spoken about this in the film's commentary, noting that Jones was simply wired differently than anyone else on set. Every day of filming, she brought something nobody expected. She was playing a character that was essentially a heightened version of her own larger-than-life persona, a flamboyant, unpredictable force of nature. On that particular day, she decided the scene needed more physicality and just went for it. What makes it remarkable is the target. Murphy had built his career on being the quickest, most unflappable person in any room. His Saturday Night Live years made him essentially bulletproof when it came to being caught off guard, and yet Jones completely pierced that armor. His reaction is raw, startled, and absolutely real, which is exactly why the moment has stayed with audiences for 30 years. It's one of the purest examples of authentic screen chemistry you'll find anywhere in a 1990s comedy. Number 2. Ivana Trump's secret bedroom. The bedroom where Lady Eloise seduces Marcus wasn't a set build. The filmmakers chose a real suite at the Boston Park Plaza that had been personally redesigned by Ivana Trump, the former wife of Donald Trump, during her career as an interior decorator in the early 1990s. Think about what that means for the scene. Marcus walks into this suffocating Baroque environment. Rich fabrics, ornate furnishings, an atmosphere of concentrated wealth that feels almost threatening. The production team didn't manufacture that feeling. Ivana Trump did. Her design philosophy, bold, excessive theatrical luxury, was exactly what the scene needed to communicate Lady Eloise's character without a line of dialogue. The choice gave the filmmakers a kind of cultural shorthand. In 1992, audiences knew exactly what Ivana Trump's aesthetic represented. Placing Marcus in a room she had decorated sent an immediate signal about the power dynamic he was walking into. He wasn't just sleeping with his boss to get ahead. He was entering someone else's world entirely, one he had no control over, and the room made that clear before anyone spoke. Great production design tells a story before the actors open their mouths. If you are enjoying this, take 2 seconds and leave a like. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. That support really motivates my work and helps a lot with bringing more content. Number 3. The foot obsession origin. The famous running gag, Marcus rejecting women because he doesn't like their feet, wasn't invented from thin air. It came from a real person director Reginald Hudlin actually knew. But here's the thing, the original version was even stranger than feet. This acquaintance wouldn't date a woman unless he approved of her back teeth, not her smile, her back teeth. Hudlin saw it as perfect raw material for showing how absurdly shallow Marcus was. A man so used to having options that he'd manufactured a ridiculous checklist to justify his own emotional unavailability. The problem was that back teeth simply don't work as a visual gag. You can't build a comedic sequence around someone squinting into another person's mouth at 7 in the morning. Feet, on the other hand, are perfect cinema. The switch was a purely practical filmmaking decision, but it became one of the most memorable character traits in the movie. It's specific enough to be funny, visual enough to pay off immediately, and telling enough to reveal everything you need to know about Marcus before the first act is over. And when he eventually falls hard for Angela and doesn't even glance at her feet, you don't need anyone to explain what that means. The gag does all the emotional work by itself. Number 4. John Witherspoon added after rap. Every single scene featuring John Witherspoon as Mr. Jackson was filmed after the main production had already shut down. The character wasn't part of the original shoot at all. He was brought in specifically because Eddie Murphy watched the rough cut and decided something was missing, and he pushed hard to get Witherspoon added. Witherspoon plays Gerard's father in the Thanksgiving scene, self-portraits, showing up in one of the most aggressively unforgettable outfits of the 1990s, a head-to-toe monochromatic mushroom print suit with matching shirt and lining. Murphy had worked alongside Hudlin before, knew Witherspoon from House Party, and was convinced his specific energy was exactly what the movie needed to push it over the top. The studio agreed to fund extra shooting days. Witherspoon was given enormous creative latitude. He chose his own costumes and improvised most of his dialogue on the spot. The filmmakers gave him the basic bones of each scene and then stepped back. That's why his performance feels so alive compared to the rest of the film, because it genuinely was. What started as a last-minute addition that nearly didn't happen became one of the most quoted sections of the entire movie. Number 5. Halle Berry's only audition. Halle Berry was the only person who auditioned for Angela. Not the first choice, not the finalist, the only one. When she came in and did her screen test, director Hudlin knew immediately she was right. But he was genuinely nervous about whether Murphy would agree, because at that point, Berry had only a handful of film credits to her name. He didn't need to worry. After Murphy watched the screen test, his response was immediate. No need to see the other actresses. She is the part. Done. No deliberation, no politics. Angela needed to feel real, warm, grounded, genuinely lovable, in a way that made Marcus's eventual choice feel earned. Berry brought all of that naturally, and Murphy recognized it instantly. Looking back, knowing what Berry's career became, Oscar winner, Bond girl, one of the most recognized actresses of her generation, the decision seems obvious. But in 1992, casting a relatively unknown actress as the emotional center of a major studio Eddie Murphy comedy was a genuine leap of faith. It paid off completely. Her chemistry with Murphy is the beating heart of the film, and without it, the whole romantic arc falls apart. Number 6. Toni Braxton's career-making song. The song that launched Toni Braxton's solo career was originally written for someone else entirely. Babyface and Daryl Simmons created Love Should Have Brought You Home, specifically for R&B legend Anita Baker. But Baker was pregnant at the time and had stepped back from recording. That one scheduling conflict changed the trajectory of Braxton's entire career. The title came directly from a line of dialogue in the film where Halle Berry's character, Angela, confronts Marcus after he cheats on her. The producers commissioned Babyface to build a song around that moment, and Baker was the obvious first choice given her sophisticated sound and stature in R&B. But here's where it gets interesting. Baker didn't just decline and walk away. She had heard Braxton performing the demo, was so impressed that she specifically recommended the producers give the opportunity to her instead, telling them the girl on the demo should record it as her own single. That referral led directly to Braxton, signing with Layface Records, and the song becoming a top 5 R&B hit. One pregnancy, one gracious recommendation from a legend, and a career was born. Anita Baker essentially handed Toni Braxton her breakthrough without a second thought. Number 7. The Empire State Building at 2 a.m. The scene where Marcus, Tyler, and Gerard reunite in front of the Empire State Building was filmed around 1 or 2 in the morning, because that's when the building's famous lights are turned off for the night. What reads as a deliberate artistic statement about intimacy and quiet reflection was partly just a matter of practical access. Shooting in front of one of the most recognized landmarks on Earth during normal hours would have been unmanageable. Crowds, traffic, tourists, ambient chaos. The middle of the night was the only window the crew could reasonably control the environment, but the timing ended up serving the scene beautifully. The darkened building strips away spectacle and leaves only the 3 men and the weight of what Marcus needs to say. This is the moment where the film asks you to believe Marcus has actually changed, that his journey wasn't just about getting the girl, but about learning to value the people who were always there. The Empire State Building in full illuminated glory would have been too triumphant for that. Dark and quiet, it says something different. Sometimes the best filmmaking decisions aren't decisions at all. They're accidents of production logistics that turn out exactly right. Number 8. Robin Givens cast for her scandal. Robin Givens was cast as Jacqueline specifically because of her real-life reputation, and Paramount Pictures executives were genuinely uncomfortable about it. By 1991, Givens was one of the most disliked public figures in America following her very public marriage and split from heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. Tabloids had branded her as calculating and manipulative. The studio was worried audiences would reject her on sight. Director Hudlin Hudlin saw it completely differently. He didn't want audiences to meet Jacqueline with a blank slate. He wanted them to walk in already believing this woman could handle Murphy's character, that she could match him move for move, outsmart him, and leave him genuinely rattled. Givens's public image did all of that before she said a word on screen. Her reputation wasn't a liability. It was the entire casting strategy. Hudlin wanted the audience to feel like Marcus had finally met his match, and Givens in that role made the dynamic instantly credible. You didn't need 20 minutes establishing that Jacqueline was formidable. The audience already believed it. The controversial backstory the studio feared would hurt the film actually made the character more powerful and the central conflict more compelling. Sometimes the best casting decision is the one the studio is most afraid of. Before we keep going, subscribe if you haven't yet. Drop a comment telling me which movie or show you want me to cover next, with strange behind-the-scenes facts. I read every single one. Number 9. Grace Jones made Halle Berry cry laughing. During the filming of the fragrance presentation scene, Halle Berry was so unable to contain herself watching Grace Jones perform that she was literally in tears off camera between takes and had to completely pull herself together every time Hudlin needed to film her reaction shots. Think about what Berry was dealing with. She was playing the sensible, grounded art director professionally observing what was supposed to be a normal business meeting. On the other side of the boardroom, Grace Jones was treating a perfume presentation like a performance art installation, fully committed to a character speaking in a mix of French and Italian accents, behaving in the most unpredictable ways imaginable, and never breaking character for even a second. Hudlin has specifically recalled Berry crying from laughter off camera. The moment the camera wasn't on her, she'd dissolve completely. Then, when he called action, she'd recover and deliver her lines with professional composure, then dissolve again the instant the shot was cut. Jones, notably, never once stopped between takes during setup time. In every available moment, she remained fully in character. Her commitment was so absolute that it became genuinely impossible for anyone around her to maintain a straight face. Number 10. The deleted airport strip scene. There is a deleted scene involving Grace Jones, a chainmetal dress, and Newark Airport that the filmmakers decided was simply too extreme for a mainstream movie. And given everything that made it into the final cut of Boomerang, that's really saying something. Strange A's signature outfit was constructed entirely from linked metal chains, visually striking, completely consistent with her avant-garde persona, and a complete disaster at airport security. Every metal detector she approached triggered alarms. Rather than simply removing the dress or finding an alternative solution, Strange A's response, was to take the entire outfit off right there in the security area and walk through the scanner completely naked, treating the situation as if it were entirely unremarkable. This is genuinely exactly what you'd expect from the character. It's consistent, it's funny, and Jones would have committed to it with total seriousness. But when the editing team reviewed the footage, they felt the scene's sheer outrageousness was disrupting the film's pacing. It was too big a moment for its placement in the story. The final edit used only a small fragment in a later montage sequence. The full scene was buried, and it remains one of the more tantalizing pieces of lost Boomerang material to this day. Number 11. Eartha Kitt's script demands. Eartha Kitt initially refused the role of Lady Eloise. She turned it down because she found portions of the character's original dialogue offensive, material that she felt crossed from comedic into genuinely demeaning territory, particularly around how it portrayed older women. She only agreed after the filmmakers made specific changes to the script. Hudlin has described Kitt as the most difficult person to cast in the entire film, not because she wasn't right for it, but because she had very clear standards about what she would represent on screen. Kitt was a legendary performer with decades of experience across theater, cabaret, film, and television. She had spent her career navigating an industry that frequently reduced women, particularly black, particularly older women, to stereotypes, and she was not about to do that in a major studio release. The production team worked with her to revise the more problematic dialogue and jokes, finding ways to preserve the character's outrageous energy without the material Kitt objected to. Once those changes were made, she was fully committed, and she delivered one of the film's most memorable performances. Lady Eloise is audacious, ridiculous, and undeniably funny, and Kitt achieved all of it while maintaining exactly the dignity she had insisted on from day one. Number 12. The controversial Korean store joke. In a scene where Angela demonstrates her knowledge of various languages, she speaks a phrase in Korean and translates it for Marcus. "I'm sorry I shot you, but I thought you were robbing the store." The line drew immediate controversy when the film was released, because it wasn't just a random joke. It was a direct reference to a real and deeply painful incident that was still raw in 1992. In 1991, a Korean shop owner in Los Angeles shot and killed a 15-year-old African-American girl named Latasha Harlins during a confrontation over a bottle of orange juice. The shop owner received only a voluntary manslaughter conviction with no prison time, a verdict that generated enormous anger and became one of the contributing factors to the Los Angeles riots of 1992. The case was widely seen as a failure of the justice system to protect black victims, and it was still very present in public consciousness when Boomerang was made. The original screenwriters Barry Blaustein and David Sheffield publicly denied writing the line and called it offensive, with Blaustein attributing it to director Hudlin. A Paramount spokesperson defended it as part of a light comedic exchange. It remains one of the most debated creative decisions in the film, a moment where a mainstream studio comedy stepped directly into the most unresolved and painful racial tension in American public life at that exact moment. Quick reminder to subscribe if you are enjoying these revelations, and tell me in the comments, do you know any strange fact about this movie that I didn't mention? Let's build the list together. Number 13. 3 Bond stars in one film. Boomerang accidentally assembled 3 actors who would each appear in separate James Bond films, creating an unintentional 007 crossover years before anyone involved was thinking about spy movies. Grace Jones had already been a Bond villain by the time Boomerang was filmed. She played Mayday in the 1985 film A View to a Kill opposite Roger Moore, and her performance remains one of the most iconic villain turns in franchise history. Physically imposing, unpredictable, and genuinely threatening in a way that many Bond antagonists never quite manage. Jeffrey Holder, who plays commercial director Nelson in Boomerang, had appeared even earlier as Baron Samedi in 1973's Live and Let Die. His deep voice, towering presence, and supernatural character made him instantly unforgettable to anyone who saw that film. And then there's Halle Berry, whose Bond appearance was still a decade away when Boomerang was shot. She would go on to play Jinx Johnson in 2002's Die Another Day opposite Pierce Brosnan, one of the most celebrated Bond girl performances in the modern era of the franchise, and a role that briefly generated serious talk of a spin-off movie. 3 Bond films, 3 different decades, all sharing the same frame in a 1992 romantic comedy. Nobody planned it. It just happened. Number 14, the Arsenio Hall original script. The screenplay that became Boomerang was originally developed for entirely different stars, specifically Arsenio Hall and Whitney Houston. The project was conceived as a vehicle for that pairing before it was substantially rewritten to fit Eddie Murphy's specific comedic personality. This would have been a fundamentally different film. Hall was at the absolute peak of his cultural prominence as the host of the Arsenio Hall Show, one of the most watched late-night programs on television. Houston was one of the biggest music stars on the planet. Their version would have leaned on Hall's relaxed, conversational comedic style and Houston's magnetic screen presence, which had been shaped more by her music career than by traditional film acting. When Murphy came on board, writers Barry Blaustein and David Sheffield, both veterans of Murphy's Saturday Night Live era, essentially rebuilt the lead character from scratch. The dialogue, the specific brand of confidence and swagger Marcus Graham projects throughout the film, the fundamental personality of the protagonist, all of it was reconceived to match Murphy's energy. The final film shares very little with whatever Arsenio Hall's version would have been. What we got was shaped entirely by Murphy's DNA as a performer, almost at the end, and the best is still coming. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this video is reaching. Bonus. Critics called it science fiction. Some white critics who reviewed Boomerang in 1992 described the film as science fiction, not as a metaphor, not as hyperbole, as a literal genre classification, because they genuinely could not believe that black professionals running companies at the level shown in the movie was something that actually existed in the real world. The entire corporate environment of Boomerang, from the junior advertising staff to the executive suite of Lady Eloise Cosmetics, Benin's cheese thank Halle's Cosme and is populated by black professionals at every level of a sophisticated business operation. For a significant number of critics and audiences in 1992, this was apparently so far outside their frame of reference that it felt fantastical. One review specifically used the phrase science fiction. Others called it a fantasy. Director Hudlin has spoken at length about how deeply frustrating this was because the critics writing those reviews were inadvertently advertising the scale of their own ignorance rather than saying anything intelligent about the film. He specifically named companies like Johnson Products, Johnson Publishing, Burrell Advertising, and Uniworld Advertising as long-established, successful, black-owned businesses these critics apparently didn't know existed. The corporate world shown in Boomerang wasn't imaginary. It was simply a world those reviewers had never bothered to learn anything about. And the film's black audiences knew that immediately. They didn't need the movie explained to them as fantasy. They were already living in it, and those were 15 strange facts about Boomerang. This film is far more layered than its reputation suggests. It was a snapshot of black professional culture that many people weren't ready to accept as real, a casting laboratory that launched major careers, and a production full of wild, unscripted moments that nobody could have planned. If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe, and comment which fact surprised you the most. And don't forget to suggest another movie that deserves a list of strange facts. See you in the next video.